and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, this week we're taking a look at the Congress party that recently had its much hyped Chintan Shivir. But there's a lot of Chintan about the Shivir also, because at the end of the day, what did they achieve? Are they sticking to status quo? There have been, of course, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of announcements. But the big message really comes from it is that the Gandhis are back in charge. Sonia Gandhi paved the way for Rahul Gandhi's takeover. Yes, there's talk about giving preference to people who are less than 50 years old, giving representation to minorities, Dalits, backwards, a move to go back to the Congress of Nehru and Indira rather than, back to the socialist secular rather than a capitalist Hindu outfit. But how will all this translate on the ground? To discuss that, I have with me a panel. I have Dr. Sanjay Baru. He's the author of Accidental Prime Minister and political commentator and analyst. He was also media advisor in Dr. Manmohan Singh's PMO. Rashid Kidwai, author of 24 Akbar Road and someone who knows a lot of what is happening within the Congress. And PKD Nambiar, also another authority on the Congress and a political analyst. Dr. Baru, what is your first takeaway from the Chintan Shivir? Are you at all hopeful that something has been done or not very hopeful?
Well, let me first begin with a confession. I'm in Hyderabad right now. I've been living here for some time. And therefore, all I have is access to the local newspapers. And if you read the local media, Chintan Shivir did not figure very prominently in the local media. So it did not make the headlines. And I tried to read a little bit online to figure out what has happened. I tried to get hold of the document which has been finalized there, but unfortunately it has taken some effort. So if the purpose of this was to make a public impact, then I'm afraid the impact has been marginal. But if the purpose was an internal kind of honest look at the party, what is happening within, etc., then one would like to know what happened inside. I mean, I have no access to what happened inside the discussions, whether they were frank. Some news reports have said that they were quite frank conversations. But the fact is that when I saw the photographs of some several hundred people sitting there, that is not the kind of Chintan Shivir that, in my judgment, the party needs right now. The party needs, in my judgment, a really serious conversation with initially at least some 30, 40 people max to strategize at the top. No army strategizes with all the colonels and the majors sitting there. The strategy is done by a group of people who are at the top of the league. And I wish there was that kind of strategic thinking, because what really the Congress needs is strategic thinking. So to sum it up, I felt at the end of reading whatever was available to me and looking at whatever, as you know, I don't watch much television, so I don't know how TV covered this. But online, etc., I would say that the real purpose, it appeared to me, was to basically put the so-called G23 in their place and finalize the transition from Sonia Gandhi to Rahul Gandhi. I think that seemed to be the purpose of this whole effort, and probably that purpose has been served.
Rashid, do you agree? I mean, I tend to agree with Dr. Baru says that this really was the agenda. G23, did they say anything at all? Before going, they were very chuffed up, but over there, I don't know how much they spoke.
Yes, Priya, I think first of all, I must compliment Dr. Sanjay Baru. The way, he spoke, he said, I don't know, I'm at a distance, we all know that he's a very, astute observer. And then, he threw the punchline towards the end. And that actually sums up the whole thing about what happened at Udaipur. That it was a kind of victory for Gandhis. It may not mean anything in terms of electoral politics. 12 elections that Congress is going to face before 2024 and 2024 Lok Sabha election itself. But Gandhis were, particularly Sonia Gandhi, was able to, push her agenda in the sense of primacy of Gandhis in the Congress hierarchy, which was established fact in any case. and put G23 to their place. I am very actually disappointed with G23 because I had expected that this was a forum that they could have spoken, and they know art of speaking. People like Ghulam Nabi Azad, who is widely respected in the Congress parivar, and he could have said it without offending anybody. But there was no attempt. Apparently, everybody is angling for a Rajya Sabha berth, which is they think they would get. I'm not so sure. So that's the thing. So in terms of internal Congress politics, there was a lot. But ultimately, as Dr. Baru is saying, see, whole thing boils down to Congress's winnability, or kind of connect with the people, or talking points. On that, actually, Udaipur Chintan Shivir was quite disappointing, and they've not been able to, even whatever was discussed. Actually, it's all belongs to Jairam Ramesh, and if Jairam Ramesh, holds a press conference and all, I think perhaps we would get to know a lot more and then what has actually appeared. So this is a real problem. Congress says, no, हमारी communication की problem है. So here also the communication problem was there very much visible. And I think the Congress has done injustice to itself by not conveying what transpired there. It's not too late. Even now, they can circulate those papers. We know all these tools, inspired leaks, etc., which can be done. But Congress seems to be, kind of quite allergic to change.
Your first take, do you agree with the other panelists that the whole idea behind this hype and hoopla was to firmly cement Rahul Gandhi in place?
Absolutely. There is no doubt. And I agree with Dr. Baru and as well as Rashid Bhai completely. There is no change. So if you really look at this Chintan Shivir, one thing is clearly proved, Priyaji, that is times have changed, but not the Congress. So if you really look at the earlier two Chintan Shivirs, in 1974, there was a Chintan Shivir which happened in Naror of UP. Then in 1998, after the coronation of Sonia Gandhi, there was in Panchmadi in Madhya Pradesh. And this Chintan Shivir, was basically to ensure that Sonia Gandhi was strong and she is in the real in command. That was the 98th purpose. Now this one, as both Rashid Bhai and Dr. Baru said, this is basically to place a smooth way for Rahul Gandhi to become the president once again. The whole discussion in the last couple of months or in the years have been that there is a leadership crisis in Congress. And we were all looking at that, yes, this leadership crisis would have been discussed in detail. And we were thinking this, as you said, this G23 who was ready to go for a fight and become the real rebels, they all become like a water cannons. They were not even able to play any major role in that particular place. And I was asking some of the Congress very senior leaders, including some of the spokespersons. I asked that what is the takeaway and how was it? The answer was simply this. Yeah, the food was good. The networking was superb. And yeah, accommodation and hospitality was excellent. मैंने बोला यार कुछ तो politically कुछ अरे वो तो क्या बात करना है वो तो आपको सबको पता ही है. So this is the kind of communication if some people have taken away from that particular place. So that is not really good, and this was not really the need of the hour for the Congress. But unfortunately, Congress once again missed the bus, and it was, as Dr. Baru said, it's having a huge number of people from across all MPs, many MLAs, all the legislative leaders. So many of them, what kind of a Chintan Shivir? And you will also be surprised, there are some leaders who were put it on an economic discussion. They were not even known to the E of economy. So some people who were put it into some other kind of brainstorming session. So they were not even fit for that. So it was more of like an affair to say that we exist. And as everybody said, that it is basically a transition exercise. And with that, the Gandhi Parivar actually had really won this on this Chintan Shivir.
But Dr. Baru, at the venue itself, you'll be pleased to know that finally Narasimha Rao the hoarding of Narasimha Rao made an appearance. There was the hoarding of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Also, there was Maulana Azad. There was Subhash Chandra Bose. There was, of course, Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, other freedom fighters, Bhagat Singh. And there was also, the talk of going back to the, giving representation to downtrodden minority Dalits, as I said. So it, a move to maybe the Indira umbrella Congress of Nehru, Indira. Is that what is in keeping with the times? Is that what we need?
No, I mean, my view about the concept of an umbrella Congress. The umbrella Congress is not accepting those who are already in the Congress are in the Congress. In other words, when you say Narasimha Rao is a congressman or Manmohan Singh is a congressman, they're already there. And just to put their faces on a poster and say now that we recognize them as congressmen is not the issue. What about a Mamata Banerjee? What about a Sharad Pawar? What about a Jagan? That is the umbrella concept I have been speaking about, which is to bring back into the party those who left the party. Merely recognizing the existence of those who are sidelined. And now saying, this umbrella concept that we are not saying only Rajiv, Sonia, Rahul, Priyanka, but also Narasimha Rao, Manmohan Singh. That is not umbrella. Umbrella means really bringing the entire Congress family back. And that I don't see any effort. I think that was the game in the last few months, from what I understand, Prashant Kishore was trying to do, and even Mamata met Sonia. That whole process, which was a process by which you try to reunite the party under a new leadership. That is what I understand by restoring the umbrella character of the Congress party, which was the old umbrella Congress, what Rajni Kothari called the Congress system. Is where the party meant all things to all people. It was a genuinely plural, multi-religious, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-regional political party of the country. Not simply a party of Nehru, Indira, Rajiv, Sonia, Rahul, Priyanka. So that changing the identity and going back to the past is the challenge for the Congress. Now that's one way of reviving the Congress. The other way, of course, is for a new Congress to emerge, but I think that the G23 experiment has failed.
I think your takeaway, G23 experiment has finished, the status quo for these guys. So the only way now the Congress can change is now maybe to split, because I don't see Mamata and etc. coming back into the umbrella. So then do leaders like Sachin Pilot and people who see a future outside the Congress leave the party?
Yeah, I think Dr. Baru has made a very interesting observation regarding this umbrella concept. And we must understand there is a very deep-rooted insecurity that has set in, because today the Congress is not of even what was in 1998 when they had met at Panchmari and decided to open this window or door of coalition politics, because still Congress was 100 plus in Lok Sabha. All the successive elections of 96, 98, 99, 2004, 2009, Congress kept winning over 100 seats. And today the Congress is actually competing in real terms with Aam Aadmi Party and with Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress. So the Congress is slightly reluctant to co-opt them, because they think that if they co-opt them, then they may be overtaken by them, overshadowed by them. Both Arvind Kejriwal and Mamata have that kind of potential and acceptability, I would say, outside the Congress to get that role. So therefore the Congress is not very warm. Remember, all this in coalition politics, all those things, alliances come from position of strength. Congress is weak. Congress is vulnerable because it's not winning elections. Imagine what will happen if I should not be saying if, but I'm saying if Congress fails to win Gujarat again, or Karnataka, or Himachal, the kind of in public, in media, among Congress persons. So there is a real crisis of confidence. So this is, I'm explaining, I'm not endorsing what Congress is doing, but this is a possible explanation why the Congress is not buying this Dr. Baru's suggestion of a kind of umbrella thing, that where everybody will be there under a tent and Modi can be challenged. But this looks good on paper, but if you look at in practical aspect, Congress is very much actually finds itself quite vulnerable.
In fact, instead of winning allies, Rahul Gandhi's comment that regional parties have no ideology has got the allies pretty upset also. So I'm not sure what this whole exercise achieved. I'm going to take a break and come back and continue this conversation. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are here discussing the Congress Party's Chintan Shivir and, of course, the takeaways from it. But PKD, another takeaway is that Rahul Gandhi is going to embark on this long Bharat Jodo Yatra. It's again yet another way of reinventing himself. What do you expect will happen from that?
Which is a very good idea. See, let me tell you that at least he has got an image of very more of like a vacation politician or a tourist politician. He comes and goes. He's not a 24-hour politician. Maybe, if at all, if it happens, it might somewhere or the other way, at least can be in the news, can be in the mainline media, and also maybe able to inspire some amount of leadership in different places. So there are so many places in the country that even now, whether electorally Congress may be very weak or maybe done and dusted, but there are places where still they have some kind of a hold. So it might help. But just look at from this Chintan Shivir where we started. What was the actual expectation from this Chintan Shivir? One is a complete reform of Congress, which was absolutely in need. Even the G23 was talking. Second was all about discussing about the leadership thing. And the third was how do you win more and more elections? Imagine before 2024, the general election, there are 11 states are going to be on polls. So almost 1,300 plus legislative assemblies are will be contested. So do you have a plan? Is the Congress do have a plan? Congress is always known for a long-term plan. So we will do, even if the Padayatra, why is it in October? Why can't it be even in the next month or next to next month? Monsoon has already started. So the idea is that even in October, there may be like all the festival season. So the long-term plans without having any short-term goals is one of the weakest part of any leadership. So Congress in this whole exercise is once again has proved themselves that they are not meant for this generation's politics. Always remember, even whether it is in business or in politics or in any aspect of life today, you always make a strategy looking at also your competitor, Priyaji. And today you have a competitor who is a full-time party workers, so dynamic, they are ready to work 24/7, and they are working 24/7. The JP Nadda, you may have seen him everywhere, in almost in every state, every second day. So he is inspiring people all across. Amit Shah, you will find him in the Northeast or in Assam or in West Bengal or all across. So the idea is that here is a party, you don't find the Congress leaders. And please note that how many second level of leaders who is inspirational figures Congress have today? No. One more thing which you only said, if you have one more minute for me, I'll tell you the Congress in its constitution says that 53% of reservation, that is for 20% for the backward community and 33% for the women. Whether it is already embedded in the constitution or not, I don't know, but it was already been told multiple times. Even in this Chintan Shivir, they are again coming and saying 50%. They just imagine they are making their own themselves a fool in front of the public. At least the people who have like a Rashid Bhai or a Sanjay Baru may not, I am not be that experienced. The people who have studied about the Congress will say that already 53% was already been published by them multiple times. Today you are talking about 50%. So that means it's all just to talk.
So all rhetoric, Dr. Baru, at the end of the day, one plan to do this big yatra, do you think it will have any impact?
I don't know. What happens in the future, one doesn't know. But, my view for a long time has been that Rahul Gandhi, as president of the Congress party, is not going to bring the Congress back to power. This is a view I've had now for a long time. And I have not been afraid to articulate it in the past. I will repeatedly say that the Congress party will never return to power with Rahul Gandhi as its leader. That's the problem. Now, the challenge for the Congress is, even with Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi retaining control of the party, can they devise a strategy by which the party acquires power? Don't forget, 2004 was that. 2004 was a coalition, UPA coalition, which was constructed by the Congress with Sonia Gandhi very much in charge of the Congress party. But she was not the Prime Minister. And of course, she could not become Prime Minister, maybe because she was Italian origin. But to imagine that another route is possible under Rahul is I think, was a foolish imagination. And I took this view 15 years back, and I take that view today, that the UPA kind of experiment is possible. Congress can be back in power in Delhi through a UPA kind of experiment, where the Gandhi family uses the resources at its command, quote unquote resources at its command, to help the UPA return to power. But Congress under Rahul's leadership is not ever going to be back in power in New Delhi.
That's a huge pronouncement. Rashid, do you agree? Dr. Baru sees hope in the UPA, but not a Rahul-led Congress.
Yes, I think, Priya, I fully agree with Dr. Baru, because there has to be, even regional parties have to realize that without Congress, there cannot be a coalition or alternative government. So both sides have to come together. But very quickly on that point of that Bharat Jodo, I have serious reservations. This is a typical that tokenism, that, high on optics and very poor on delivery. Who's going to lead that Padyatra? See, the physical distance between Srinagar to Kanyakumari is 3,637 kilometers. It would require at least a year and a half to, walk through all these things with kind of, public meetings and stopovers, etc. and all. Logistically, it's going to be a nightmare. And who's going to lead it? Can we imagine Rahul Gandhi sparing time? And what if he does? He walks 2 kilometers and flags off, a bus or a Congress group of Congress workers. He's going to become a subject of ridicule once again, and more so by BJP, IT cell, and everyone in media also. So therefore, this should have been thought through. This whole idea of Padyatra, I think it's very ill-conceived, because unless a Gandhi, that is Sonia Gandhi, obviously cannot lead, but Rahul or Priyanka, even Priyanka leads, it will lead to other kind of complications. So therefore, I don't think this is a Bharat Jodo is a good idea in this time of social media and all that. I mean, what Chandrasekhar and other people did it, even YSR, Reddy did it. Those were, or Digvijay Singh or Sunil Dutt, that they could do it. That was a different era. Today, it's not feasible at all.
What does he do, Rashid? If he's on social media, we say Zameen pe nahi hai. Ab Zameen pe hai, to you saying ke galat style pe Zameen pe aaya hai.
Very quickly, in that Chintan Shivir held, in 2013, Rahul Gandhi was elevated as Vice President of the Congress. It should have done it or given an indication. We are getting a media conflicting signal. Rahul Gandhi says something, Congress says something. He goes to Warangal. In what capacity he went to Warangal if he's not going to be Congress President, or at Dohad or several other places? So he's first among equals in the Congress, yet he's not, willing to take the mantle of leadership. I think that is the biggest question that should have been settled. They could not even settle that great fight that is going on between Ashok Gehlot and Sachin Pilot. All the leaders were there. They could have got them and, resolved it.
Exactly, that's a good point. PKD, you could have, you were in Rajasthan, all the players are there, and since you want to bring in the youth and give this message to the young people, why not do that changeover now if that's what they're planning to do?
There was a discussion. I was told that Ashok Gehlot will be maybe a potential presidential candidate, and Sachin Pilot may be elevated to be the chief minister. But it was all just to create some kind of a news bites here and there. It was a very well clear message, a well thought after program, wherein the whole purpose was to affirm that Rahul Gandhi is the leader. And nobody, in whether it is Ghulam Nabi Azad or Kamal Nath or any Shashi Tharoor, none of these people could even make a voice against Gandhi or the leadership. So the idea is that even today, as we right now speak, Hardik Patel has resigned. So the idea is that every word, and he was a good catch for the Congress, because he was a bitter against the BJP, and he could get all the entire Patidar community together, led a big movement. But then could they help him? So what was his, even last week he was telling that, yeah, even if I wanted to speak to Rahul Gandhi, when will I speak? It may take many weeks or a month for me to even get a conversation with him. So the leadership is the challenge, which none of these activities could make any impact. But as I said, any activity in Congress today makes some kind of an importance. The reason being, it was more of like a dead horse. Maybe even if it is trying to get up, we should all support. I always quote Nitin Gadkari that I think it is important to have a strong Congress in this country. It is important even for the BJP to stay in power, because and also Priyaji, one thing you need to understand, that where is Congress, who are Congress fighting against? Most of the places, not just with the BJP, it is with the congressmen, whether it is Sharad Pawar, whether it is Mamta, whether it is KCR, whether it is Jagan Mohan Reddy, or many of these people with the Congress is fighting today is with the congressmen. So from last 84 onwards, Congress is in its diminishing stage. The only thing is that Rahul Gandhi had to come to put the last nail, and which he is very good at it, doing it very well.
Well, but Dr. Baru, one quick point also, the fact that we were discussing that there is a pan-India sentiment all over. There is still, Congress has a vote base. But if you see currently, 7 chief ministers are ex-congressmen. So, despite leaving the Congress, they can still do well. They're doing better once you leave the Congress. So what does that say about a Congress pan-India base?
They tapped into regionalism. Their regional sentiment is important in India. It has always been there from the time of the original split of the Congress, 69. In fact, it started in 67. The Dravidian movement in Tamil Nadu, Charan Singh in Uttar Pradesh, the CPM in Bengal, which I've always believed was essentially a Bengal party. Bengali tapped into Bengali sentiment. Then the Akalis in Punjab. Regional sentiment in this country is an extremely important sentiment. Sitting in Delhi, many of us do not adequately appreciate it. And now that I'm sitting in Hyderabad, let me tell you, the only sentiment here is regional. Even the BJP is trying to tap into a sub-regional sentiment. But the point is that regional parties are important. And therefore, congressmen who don't see inspiration in Delhi, like a Jagan in Andhra, or even Mamta in Bengal, they converted themselves into regional leaders. So Mamta appeals to Bengali regionalism, Jagan appeals to Andhra regionalism, KCR appeals to Telangana regionalism. So that is a sentiment, and which is an extremely important sentiment. That is something the BJP is unable to crack. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's BJP allied with regional parties, Chandrababu Naidu, DMK, etc. Narendra Modi's BJP is unable to ally itself with regional parties because it can't. And that's the contradiction Congress should take advantage of.
That's a very good note to end on, and I suspect I'm going to call you all back for another discussion, because I think we've ended on a very provocative note. There is hope for the Congress in getting a more federal, more regional oriented outlook, and not just harping on their pan-India nationalist identity that we keep doing. But thank you so much for this conversation, and we'll see you all again same time next week.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.